please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. And he used our military...
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment...
You invited me to speak.
This discussion is interesting because it shows what happens when speakers feel ignored or attacked, and what they'll do not to lose face. What went wrong from a linguistic point of view? Let's find out. Welcome or welcome back to the channel.
And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world.
With this, Trump makes it clear that he won't take sides. Vance sees this as an opportunity to criticize the Biden administration. Rhetorical attacks on the opponent is one of the 4 pillars of political communication, and is often the most prominent one. The 3 others being positive personal details about the politician, and the politician showing that he's supposedly in sync with the values and wishes of ordinary people. In this case, Trump being aligned with the world and wanting peace. The 4th pillar is presenting policies.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
With this, Vance tries to show that Trump is the positive opposite to Biden. He introduces the word diplomacy to echo, but also elaborate on Trump's claim about being aligned with the world. Diplomacy has positive connotations and makes Trump sound even-tempered, something he's often accused of not being. So rhetorically, this is a good move on Vance's part.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him.
With "stop him," Zelensky contradicts Trump's assertion about not wanting to side with either of them. "Stop him" makes it sound like there's only one bad guy in this war, and that they all agree who it is. So at this point, Trump and Vance can't like the sound of where this is going. God bless, Zelensky says, and he repeats this idiom later on. Thus, he doesn't only make it sound like they all agree who their common enemy is, but also that God is on Zelensky's side. In statement analysis, it's recognized that certain people, typically deceptive people, use mild oaths and religious idioms to make their statement sound more convincing and to make themselves sound righteous, pious, or whatever. Whereas other people, typically truthful people, don't evoke divine witnesses, but stick to the cold facts. This isn't to say that we're now able to deduce that Zelensky's being deceptive, not at all, but what can be deduced later on is that Zelensky's use of this idiom is manipulative and self-serving. Let's just keep it in mind for now.
God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but
the way Trump and Vance make Zelensky's question seem irrelevant reveals that they interpret Zelensky's question as hostile.
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but
why would they do that? Probably because they picked up on the fact that Zelensky isn't really asking, but is making a statement. That the United States has failed and should have acted a lot sooner, and that diplomacy is difficult or more likely, impossible. This is criticism masked as a question, so perhaps Zelensky's initial politeness wasn't so sincere.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people are been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him.
The function of the conjunction but is to minimize and negate that which preceded it. So here, Zelensky minimizes and negates Trump and Vance's objections.
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but
A simple but can be more than enough for someone to feel that another speaker attacks their face by not listening to their objections.
you know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
Considering the context, this is a declaration of no confidence, masked as a question, and coupled with Zelensky using Vance's initials, making this personal. It's easy to interpret what he's saying as confrontational, to say the least, as something he's not really looking for an answer to. Linguistics distinguishes between locutionary and illocutionary speech acts. Locutions are just the statements or questions themselves. Illocutions are the implications of said statements and questions. On a locutionary level, Zelensky is merely asking a question. On an illocutionary level, however, he is dismissive of Vance's talk about diplomacy. The only reason why Zelensky mentions these world leaders and Putin dishonoring the deal is to express his lack of confidence, even though logically there's no causal relation between the alleged inaction of other world leaders and the Trump administration. Even though there's no causal relation, Zelensky keeps expressing his disbelief as if there is. The following is an excerpt near the end of this heated exchange.
Then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama.
Now, Zelensky doesn't only make the logical fallacy that because previous presidents have been passive or indifferent, allegedly, this means that Trump and Vance will also be passive or indifferent. He also makes the logical fallacy of presuming that because a country has a president you don't like, that means that everybody in the country supports said president. A president isn't your president in the sense that you have to agree with him in everything. This is disingenuous argumentation on Zelensky's part. Returning to the previous excerpt, Zelensky's subsequent reaction underlines that he wasn't really looking for an answer from Vance, and he doesn't seem so polite anymore. Watch this.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President.
Vance takes note of Zelensky's posture, head shaking and eye rolling, and upgrades his rhetorical attacks proportionately, ending up with the word propaganda, which portrays Zelensky as an actor or comedian.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
No one's denied the problems, quite the contrary. So this is a different issue, an issue Zelensky can use to make Vance seem oblivious to what's going on. Between the lines, Zelensky's point is that it's difficult or impossible to end the war in a diplomatic fashion, which again is why he's stating, not asking. If he were genuinely asking, he'd be open to input or discussion, and he isn't. What makes Zelensky's attitude particularly face-threatening is that it's right in the middle of a negotiation and that it's in front of American media. This is no coincidence, and it shows the mindset Zelensky had before accepting Trump's invitation to come, despite his surface-level politeness.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
The mindset he had, even though he knew what this meeting was going to be about.
We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries, I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch.
Thus, there are lots of indications that Zelensky didn't show up to negotiate, but to make a statement while the cameras are rolling.
You bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
Some would argue that the word attack is a hyperbole, but the essence remains that Zelensky wasn't asking, but criticizing and dismissing, and Vance has picked up on that. Vance's reaction is symptomatic of people who feel disrespected in a conversation, and Zelensky's attitude is definitely dismissive.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position.
Given the context, Zelensky's use of the idiom "God bless" doesn't exactly sound like a heartfelt wish. On the contrary, he uses the idiom to interrupt Trump in what's now become a power struggle. And what's the context? The context is that Zelensky promises that something negative will happen to America, even though he can't make such a promise. So he appeals to deity, which is in line with him not sticking to the facts. This way of promising an upcoming threat can be interpreted as not only a fear appeal, but also self-serving and disingenuous rhetoric when it's right in the middle of a negotiation between two countries that are far away from America. Self-serving because Zelensky's looking for support. So no, he's not simply answering Vance's question, and he is indeed telling Trump and Vance what will happen. Not what he thinks will happen, but what he claims he knows will happen.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate.
He literally says, "I'm telling you," right after he says he's not.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
At this point, both sides feel disrespected, and when people feel disrespected, they stop listening to each other and start majoring in the minor, so to speak, like this.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing cards.
Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards.
Saying you don't have the cards is obviously a metaphor, not meant to be taken literally. Trump could just as well have said that Zelensky doesn't have the power. Still, Zelensky says he's not playing cards, as if that's the essence of Trump's objection.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Trump reacts to two things here. Zelensky's dismissive attitude during this discussion and the implications of his complaints, that he doesn't believe in a diplomatic solution, which is exactly why he's looking for support, money and equipment from other countries.
You said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can I-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this.
From the very beginning of the war, we've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank-
president, $350 billion.
By asking if Zelensky has said thank you once, Vance puts himself in a vulnerable position because it makes it easy for critics to say that he has said thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation.
On the other hand, supporters of Vance would say that saying thank you for the invitation isn't the same as saying thank you for the help. However, logically and from a psycholinguistic standpoint, the relevant thing isn't if he said thank you or how many times he said it. What's relevant is that when speakers feel disrespected, discussions turn into power struggles, and then everybody stops listening to each other. A power struggle isn't only a bad thing. In my opinion, it's important to see how negotiations can play out. Usually, we as viewers only see the smiles and hear the platitudes when two parties have reached an agreement. Here, we get to see what's going on behind the scenes. This makes it easier to evaluate the strength of the arguments. That kind of transparency and honesty is important because politicians who shake each other's hands and talk about freedom, inclusion, representation, or whatever has nothing to do with transparency and honesty.
$50 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about Vance?
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
This is the point where Zelensky's contempt is made clear, a contempt that was there all along, before his polite request to ask a question, and before he even decided to show up.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
$1
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had
Some would argue that Zelensky's behavior is strange for someone who's come to negotiate, and rightfully so. But my point, based on observations of his statements and demeanor, is that he didn't come to agree, but to expose Trump and Vance while the cameras are rolling, in a fishing for sympathy tactic. And no, again, just because a country has a president, that doesn't mean that everybody in the country voted for him. The fact that he keeps stating this as if there's a causal relation is disingenuous. Besides, there are many other political issues than this war, so Zelensky's being quite navel-gazing here.
You didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment.
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have
In 3
okay.
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
Yes, to speak about the topic at hand, the topic they were supposed to agree on. He wasn't invited to make declarations of no confidence, because if so, he didn't even have to come. Whether the war would be over in 2 weeks or 3 days is beside the point. When a speaker majors in the minors like this, it's often because they want to show that they're offended, allegedly.
We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long.
In my opinion, it's hard to dispute this. It's important for viewers and voters to see how political leaders argue for their positions. Otherwise, it's much too easy for politicians to shake hands, smile for the camera, and regurgitate the buzzwords that are trending this week. Newspapers and news shows also don't give us the full picture. They play 30 seconds of a 30-minute speech and call it powerful or hateful. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. Until next time.